when that movie came out. Was anything cut from that film?
The studio actually legally couldn't trim it. They couldn't cut it.
The huge blooper in Blazing Saddles that nobody noticed until now. For more than 50 years, Blazing Saddles has stood as one of the most daring comedies ever made. Audiences have laughed at its outrageous jokes, its fearless satire, and its complete destruction of traditional Western movie cliches. Critics have analyzed it, comedians have praised it, and generations of movie fans have watched it countless times. Yet hidden inside this legendary film is a strange moment that escaped attention for decades. It wasn't a famous joke. It wasn't one of the controversial scenes. And it wasn't even something the filmmakers intended. Instead, it was a blink-and-you'll miss it blooper buried inside one of the movie's most chaotic sequences. A mistake so unusual that many viewers never noticed it at all. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. To understand why this blooper is so fascinating, we first need to understand why Blazing Saddles became such an important movie in the first place. When the film arrived in theaters in 1974, Hollywood was changing rapidly. The traditional Western, once the king of American cinema, was losing popularity. Audiences had grown tired of seeing the same heroic cowboys riding across dusty landscapes, while villains conveniently appeared for a final showdown. Meanwhile, America itself was experiencing tremendous change. The Vietnam War had deeply divided the country. The Watergate scandal had damaged public trust in government. Conversations about race, equality, and social justice were becoming more prominent than ever before. Into this environment stepped filmmaker Mel Brooks. Unlike many directors of the era, Brooks wasn't interested in preserving old Hollywood traditions. He wanted to challenge them. More importantly, he wanted audiences to laugh while he did it. His idea was simple but incredibly risky. What if the classic American Western was treated as a joke? Not just a light-hearted parody, but a complete demolition of every stereotype, every convention, and every sacred rule that Hollywood had spent decades building. The result was Blazing Saddles. At first glance, the story seemed straightforward. A corrupt politician and a greedy railroad developer want to force settlers out of a small frontier town called Rock Ridge. Their plan is surprisingly simple: appoint a black sheriff, expecting the town's racist residents to panic and leave. Instead, Sheriff Bart proves to be intelligent, courageous, and far more capable than anyone expected. What follows is a non-stop avalanche of satire, slapstick comedy, social commentary, and complete absurdity. But creating such a film was never going to be easy. The screenplay itself was considered dangerous by many studio executives. Some worried audiences would misunderstand the racial satire. Others believed the humor went too far. Certain jokes shocked even people who worked in comedy. Yet Mel Brooks remained determined. He believed comedy could expose prejudice more effectively than serious lectures. By making racism look ridiculous, he hoped audiences would recognize how irrational it truly was. That philosophy became the foundation of the entire film. One of the most important contributors to the screenplay was comedian Richard Pryor. Although he ultimately did not star in the movie, his influence can be felt throughout the script. Pryor understood racial humor in a way few writers could. He knew how to challenge audiences while still making them laugh. His contributions helped shape Sheriff Bart into one of the most memorable comedy heroes in film history. Eventually, the role went to Cleavon Little. It turned out to be one of the greatest casting decisions imaginable. Little brought confidence, intelligence, and perfect comedic timing to the character. Rather than playing Bart as angry or bitter, he portrayed him as calm, clever, and fully aware of the absurdity surrounding him. His performance allowed the satire to land with even greater impact. While audiences often remember the jokes, one reason the film still works today is because of Little's remarkable restraint. Around him, chaos unfolds constantly. Yet Bart remains the smartest person in every room. That contrast creates much of the movie's humor. Another major factor behind the film's success was Gene Wilder, who played the Waco Kid. Interestingly, Wilder wasn't the original choice. Production problems forced a last-minute casting change, and Wilder stepped into the role shortly before filming began. What could have been a disaster became a blessing. Wilder's chemistry with Cleveland Little was immediate. Their scenes together provide the emotional center of a movie otherwise packed with outrageous comedy. Without that balance, Blazing Saddles might have become exhausting. Instead, it became unforgettable. Yet despite the film's brilliance, the production itself was far from smooth. Filming was often chaotic. Actors improvised. Scenes changed at the last minute. Unexpected problems appeared regularly. And according to numerous stories from the set, Mel Brooks often encouraged the madness rather than trying to control it. His philosophy was simple. If something unexpected was funny, keep it. That attitude helped create some of the movie's most memorable moments. Take the famous campfire sequence. Today, audiences barely think twice about it. But in 1974, hearing multiple cowboys loudly passing gas around a campfire was almost unimaginable in a major Hollywood film. Executives reportedly hated the scene. Some thought it was childish. Others believed audiences would be offended. Brooks disagreed. He understood that the joke wasn't merely about flatulence. The scene mocked decades of Hollywood mythology. Classic westerns presented cowboys as noble heroes. Brooks wanted to remind viewers that real people aren't always glamorous. Sometimes they eat beans. Sometimes they make embarrassing noises. And sometimes reality is funnier than fantasy. The scene became one of the most famous moments in comedy history. But remarkably, it wasn't even the strangest thing that happened during production. That distinction belongs to a bizarre incident that remained hidden in plain sight for decades. To find it, we have to look at the film's legendary ending. As Blazing Saddles approaches its climax, reality begins to collapse. The story abandons traditional filmmaking rules completely. Characters crash through walls. They invade other movie sets. Fights spill out of the fictional world and into the real Warner Brothers studio lot. Actors chase one another through hallways. Entire scenes seem to lose all connection to the original Western setting. It is one of the most ambitious fourth wall breaks ever attempted in a comedy. The sequence feels chaotic because it was designed to feel chaotic. But amid all that carefully planned madness, something genuinely unexpected occurred. During one shot, as performers rush through the studio area, a man appears in the background. At first glance, he seems unremarkable. He's not dressed like a cowboy. He's not dressed like a movie character. In fact, he appears completely ordinary. That's because he wasn't part of the film. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't an extra. He wasn't even supposed to be there. According to stories from people connected to the production, the man simply wandered into the area while filming was taking place. In most movies, such a mistake would have required another take. Editors would remove the shot. Directors would insist on fixing the error. But this was Blazing Saddles. And Mel Brooks had a different reaction. Instead of removing the accidental pedestrian, he reportedly found the moment hilarious. After all, the entire sequence was already breaking every filmmaking rule imaginable. Why not break one more? As a result, the unexpected stranger remained in the finished movie. For decades, audiences focused on the larger jokes happening around him. The action is so frantic that very few viewers noticed the random man casually walking through cinematic history. Yet once modern viewers began rewatching the scene frame by frame, the blooper became impossible to ignore. There he was, a completely ordinary person accidentally becoming part of one of the greatest comedies ever made. Ironically, that accidental appearance perfectly captures what made Blazing Saddles special. The movie thrives on unpredictability. It embraces mistakes. It turns accidents into comedy. And it constantly reminds viewers that entertainment doesn't have to be polished to be brilliant. Sometimes the funniest moments happen when things go wrong. And nowhere is that philosophy more visible than in the mysterious stranger who wandered into a scene and unknowingly became part of movie history. But that famous blooper is only one piece of the story. Because behind the scenes, Blazing Saddles contained deleted jokes, abandoned scenes, casting disasters, studio battles, and creative risks that almost prevented the film from ever reaching theaters. And some of those hidden stories are even stranger than the blooper itself.